Amit, today we're going to talk about key opportunities in Brazil.
Yeah.
So this interview is really directed at international investors who are considering starting or increasing their exposure to Brazilian assets.
Sure.
So the first I want to ask, why Brazil?
Well, I think Brazil's is a wonderful country. It's one of the large emerging countries of the world with a young population. Also, it's hitting what people say it's a demographic sweet spot in terms of the workforce ratio and the population. And, it's a country with a lot of natural resources. And despite the current recession, I think most analysts are quite bullish about the long-term potential of the country. I'm talking 10, 20 years.
So in terms of the investment opportunities, what really stands out in Brazil at the moment?
Well, that's a very tricky question. Let me answer that in different categories. First of all, if you look at equities, everyone's fishing in large caps. So the Bovespa index has actually underperformed since 2008, and it's subject to a lot of speculative flows. So I'd say if you've got someone really good advising you, it's probably better to look at smaller and medium-sized companies in that Bovespa range, those in particular which are focusing on domestic demand and consumer staples, right? And also companies which are exporting, because some of those companies have done very well with a weaker real. So that's what I'd say in terms of equities. Make sure you've got a very good fund manager with a good track record. And also something much more specialized is private equity. And that's again looking at the microeconomy of Brazil. So relatively detached from the macroeconomic volatility. So when I say private equity, there are certain sectors like healthcare, IT, and retail which continue to do well based on consumer demand and demographic trends. And also in terms of holding money for the short to medium term, some fixed income funds and also treasury notes are returning a very high rate because the base rate is 14.25, so you can get between 10 and 13% on some of these funds if you're parking your money in between transactions.
So what are the risks involved in investing in private equity? Because aren't you just investing directly in companies?
Well, you can either invest directly in companies or through a fund which has maybe 5 to 10 positions. Okay. And in terms of risk, yes, there is risk, but I think if you're touching private equity, not just in Brazil, but anywhere in the world, you've got to be looking at 3 to 5 years. And I say in Brazil, you're looking more at 5 years. And you're sacrificing liquidity for return. But you've got to have a certain amount of capital to be able to do that in the first place.
Brazil, isn't it a little bit risky to invest in? I mean, what with political turmoil, negative growth, and currency depreciation?
Yeah, well, you've really focused on some key areas there, and yes, we need to be aware of it. And some of that actually has created the current opportunity in terms of bringing investment into Brazil. Negative growth, as you say, last year in 2015, the economy contracted by 3.8%, and it's expected to decline by 3 to 3.2% this year. And some people are saying there'll be a moderate upturn in 2017. So yeah, very good point. But at the same time, people are still looking at the market here for certain sectors. Inflation's high, yes. The exchange rate has fallen significantly since 2011. It hit 4.2 against the dollar last year. Although trying to predict where the exchange rate's going, that's a dangerous game.
Okay.
Regarding the political scandal, a lot of people believe it will be better in the long term, but how long will it take? Because I think the process is going to take a lot of time, and there could be, in a few months before the Olympics, there could be a different president sitting in office.